Steve Petteruti with Shannon. Good morning, Shannon.
Good morning.
How are you feeling today?
Good.
You should feel great today. You know, it's a red letter week for you, isn't it? Another remarkable step forward in your brilliant career. Shannon became state licensed this week as a nurse practitioner. Congratulations.
Very exciting. Thank you.
An opportunity to now serve the people of Rhode Island to a greater extent. Good morning, Nick. How are you doing back there? Another hardworking student moving forward, right? The check is in the mail from Gina Raimondo. Don't worry, Nick. It's coming. It's coming. We're going to be talking a little bit about one of our favorite topics, the welfare bill for underachieving students. That's what I call it. That's Gina Raimondo's. You like that? The welfare bill for underachieving students. Line up, folks. You know, this is the welfare state redux, a new entitlement that opens the lid on future expense. We'll talk about that because it affects your health. Did you know, Shannon, that you didn't know this because I didn't know it until I researched it, that Rhode Island is the state leader in, guess what, do we lead the country in?
Oh, gosh.
The burning of fossil fuel. We are number one.
How is that possible?
The percentage of our energy generated from fossil fuel outstrips every state in the union. We're neck and neck with West Virginia. Do you realize that we have a greater percentage of our energy from fossil fuel than Texas? Texas, right? They're an oil state. They're pretty smart down there, though. Governor Perry, he's now the head of the U.S., the Department of Energy. He's the Department of Energy head. Perry, he's no love child of the left, but Governor Perry, under his leadership, Texas is now the fourth leading nation in the world in generating wind energy. Were they a country? And you know, sometimes they think they are. They'd be the fourth. That's pretty amazing. Think about that for a moment. Here we are in Rhode Island, and Governor Raimondo, to her credit, she's trying to push the renewable energy, so that by 2020, 1,000 megawatts of energy should be added to the renewable energy amount. To put that in perspective, Iowa generates 7,000 megawatts of renewable energy right now. Now, why are we talking about this on intellectual medicine, and how does it affect your health? Many ways, people, so tune in. By the way, grab a pen because we're going to be giving you some tips, some pointers, some information, things you can use. They can always watch our podcast later, right, Shan?
Of course.
And how do they do that?
They are on our website. Just go to im-120.com.
All right. Now, what is a podcast?
Really, it's just a recording.
What is a podcast?
Just broadcast.
It just sounds like they imported something from a foreign planet. The pods are here. So really, think about this. It connects. So today, we're going to be talking about a testosterone replacement therapy for men and for women. Most importantly, for women. We're going to connect that to brain preservation, to the failed drug trials for Alzheimer's prevention, to the failed water testing in many of our public schools for lead levels, to brain corrosion, to the decrease in sexual frequency that Americans are having across the nation. Are you ready for all this? We got to tie it all together, Shan.
What do you got?
This is going to be it's a big deal. We're a big show here. By the way, this is a magnificent day out there, folks. We hope you're enjoying it. St. Patrick's on the horizon. There's a parade in Newport. Many magnificent things to do in and around our beautiful state. We want to shake ourselves of remnants of our inferiority complex. There's no better place to live in the world. And so we'll give you a little bit of good news. We, in 2004, were the 7th highest income tax state in the nation. In 2014, we've improved. We're now 14th. We know it's improvement. Wow. It's improvement. You got to give it credit there. We're happy about that. We still are one of the highest property tax states in the nation, and that crushes businesses. This is something we need to look at because financial health connects to our medical health. Everything kind of links in together. But let's talk about, so I had somebody ask this question. In intellectual medicine, we are strong advocates of replacing your hormones so that you do not accelerate in your aging process. As we get older, our hormones fade. And as they fade, it accelerates aging on every level. Brain corrosion, atrophy of muscle, fading of your immune system, right? You get colds more often. Cancer rates go up. All these things are connected. Now, At intellectual medicine, we do more than just replace testosterone. It's critical that that be replaced for men and women. And by the way, women need it at a younger age. And if it's not replaced, it's been correlated with accelerated rates of dementia. Now, one question out there has been, what about heart disease? There literally are warnings on the package inserts of some testosterone products, some of these topical gels that are sold, regarding heart disease. The latest studies demonstrated that men given testosterone replacement therapy had a decreased incidence of cardiovascular events, including heart attacks, strokes, and unstable angina. I don't think it's the final word. I think you need to go beyond testosterone. You have to look at arteries and make sure that they stay healthy. But it's not enough to give testosterone. At intellectual medicine, we couple it with HCG for men, human chorionic gonadotrophin. So I had somebody ask, isn't that a woman's hormone? What HCG, right, Shan? That is.
Right.
Tell us.
When you're pregnant?
Yeah, it's
what we test.
It's the hormone of pregnancy. It also is a hormone that has a molecular structure nearly identical to luteinizing hormone, the hormone that stimulates the testicles to produce testosterone and maintains their health and vitality. This is relevant because if you are taking testosterone and you are not doing anything to preserve testicular function, you will suffer the consequence. You give testosterone to an individual, it turns off the brain's production of stimulation to the gonads, testicles in men, the ovaries in women. Now in men, that leads to testicular atrophy. The testicles will shrink. Now folks that are not more enlightened will say to you, well, that doesn't matter. Small testicles doesn't matter. You still get your testosterone. However, it's been our observation in intellectual medicine over many years of doing this, that correlates with a decrease in well-being, sexual function, erectile function, ejaculatory function, and overall satisfaction. When it's coupled with HCG, properly administered, you can preserve testicles, and we have noted a correlation with an improvement in all of those attributes. So merely getting some testosterone cream, smearing on your skin, and hoping that that works out for you, it's just not going to hit the bell. There's a lot more going on. Now let's turn for a moment to the brain issue. Brain is, of course, a core element of our well-being. Why live to be 120 if you're going to leave your brain at the starting line? Makes no sense. Now, recently, there were 2 drugs whose trials were halted. Merck halted the late-stage drug Varubicestat, right, Shan? Say that 3 times fast. Varubicestat. And Eli Lilly ended a trial of a drug called solanezumab. Wow, right? Do you know why they ended these studies?
Because no one could prescribe them with their names.
Nobody could say the name. The Alzheimer's people could not pronounce the name, and therefore, no, they stopped them because they failed to have any impact on the symptoms of progression of Alzheimer's disease. Big disappointment. The stocks went down. The scientific community is questioning the very premise of their theory that these beta amyloid plaques actually cause dementia. The beta amyloid plaques, you've heard of those, I'm sure. They're plaques that form in the brain, and they are present in people who have Alzheimer's. And the thinking was, man, if we could do something about those plaques, then we could do something to help prevent Alzheimer's. Here's the problem. They will never, in our view, find a drug that will adequately untangle the snarl of these plaques and reverse Alzheimer's in its late stage. You need to go back to the beginning of the problem. Now, we were talking a moment ago about hormones. Studies have correlated preservation of hormonal health with brain health. In fact, testosterone is critical. It prevents neuronal cell death. Simply put, properly replaced testosterone can prevent dead brain cells. Now, dead brain cells are bad. You want to keep them alive. But you've got to start at the right time, and you want to combine it with other hormones. Women may need testosterone as young as their late 30s. Now, here's what you're looking for, folks. If you're a man and you're starting to experience fatigue, low energy, falling asleep at the end of the day, lost interest in sexual activity, a decline in morning erections, irritability, short-temperedness, a decrease in immune function manifested by frequent colds. These can be early signs of testosterone inadequacy, even if the blood test is technically normal. In intellectual medicine, we are not looking to simply wait for disease states. We're not waiting for your body to collapse. We're supporting it all the time. In women, symptoms can occur as early as the late 20s and even 30s. Decreased interest in sexual activity, diminished energy, difficulty achieving climax, bone thinning can occur. These are early signs worthy of investigation, but your conventional doctor will overlook these details. How are we doing over there, Nick? Okay, it's time for us to take a momentary break. We'll pick up on the other side on this most important topic, and we'll tell you about advances being made against unwanted immunizations. I'm Dr. Petteruti. This is Intellectual Medicine. A lot of minutes, so we're still on air, right?
Yeah.
This is great. I get no breaks. Is that what you're telling me here?
Never.
Well, listen, folks, if you're watching us or streaming us, and there are topics that interest you, you can reach out to Shannon. How can they?
You can just comment on the feed, on the Facebook feed.
Comment on the feed. We love getting the feedback. It helps direct our focus and can help us broach new topics. So feel free to weigh in live and in real time. So let's see. We talked about brains a little bit. That's such an important topic. I need to pick up on that a bit more because I want to tie it into the whole lead exposure and the water. They tested schools. They had 11 schools in Cranston test above the EPA limit of 15 parts per billion. Now, the EPA limit itself is highly liberal. That 15 parts per billion, what about if you're 14 parts per billion? Is it okay? Who knows, right?
For them, I guess.
You get a slow,
they got to have some threshold.
You get a slow poison to your brain. What happens in 20 years?
Oops. Mm-hmm.
So that's important. It's important that people test their water and themselves. I'll finish that thought, and then we can see the study correlating acupuncture to improvement in colic.
I did not.
Yeah, it was the only treatment found effective thus far. So you've in
For
your
colic?
yeah,
Really?
that better than placebo. Now when you were in Bologna and running that business, did you run into? You must have run into a lot of moms with colicky kids.
Yeah.
What sort of things did they do back then?
Not a lot. You know, it was a constant movement. It was putting the car seat on top of the dryer. It was the highway driving. Just
Car seat on top of the dryer? That
yeah,
work?
because it had like a hum and it kind of like moved
Yeah,
a
and then you
little
fall
bit.
asleep watching TV and the thing vibrates off.
Well, it was, don't leave them. But if, rather than screaming, crying, or they're sleeping on top of a dryer, it was much happier to have them
Sleep on top of a
sleep
dryer.
on top of the dryer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Decrease cardiovascular events. Talk more about that. I thought it was fascinating about the wind power and the amount of our energy that we get from fossil fuel versus other states.
So what happened to all those wind turbines we put out off of Block Island?
They're representing a small percentage. You put in a fossil fuel plant, that gobbles up the demand, it suppresses innovation, and it prevents others from entering the market. So you build that new power plant up in Burrillville, and all of a sudden you're going to have a plethora of fossil energy. It's not going to leave space and demand for other energy forms to fill in the void.
Horrible.
You actually want to create a void so that you can grow up new stuff. First-year doctors allowed to work 24-hour shifts starting in July. That would have been a cut down for me. We had 36-hour shifts.
Was that up? Didn't they? Wasn't it like 12 hours or something?
I think they cut it to 16 at one point.
16. Yeah. Ooh, it doesn't look good.
Did you hear about the guy? He tried to invoke the stand your ground law because he shot somebody, killed him. 71-year-old dude at a movie theater got in an argument with the dude in front of him. The guy threw popcorn at him and he shot him dead.
What?
Yeah, I don't think popcorn is assault with a deadly weapon.
Oh my gosh.
Popcorn.
phone for a second? Can I see your phone? I want to take a picture.
You want that?
Yeah, I want to take a picture. You put your thing on. Just put it on.
What, babe?
Just, you can leave them on.
Okay.
Oops.
Whenever your mouth moves, I take them off. Okay. We are back. That was a quick segment, Shannon. I feel like I jammed too much in it. We got to peel it back a little bit. But, let's talk about something really, really important. The New England Patriots acquired a wide receiver, right? This guy Brandon Cooks. I'm liking it, Nick. What are you thinking? Yeah, we've traded a couple of draft picks, and we got a 23-year-old burner, right? He's a vertical threat, isn't he? So what's going on in New England now, right? We got him, we got the cornerback, and it looks like we may end up keeping Butler too. We're loading for bear. We're going back to back, and I predict. Okay, I like my prediction. So here's my prediction. I think they're going to keep Garoppolo. They're keeping him, because you're a twisted knee away from becoming a mediocre team. We all love Tom Brady, and we want him to live to be 120. I'm going to live to be 120, and Tom Brady's going to line up under center at like age 90. We're going to be like the new age of the advanced anti-aging. But what happened to our Friars, man? They went out to New York and laid an egg. And no other way to call it. I'm glad I didn't see it. They just laid an egg. Your whole season, done. I don't even care about the NCAA now, right? Because why bother? Well, they don't deserve it. They should be forced to just watch it on TV. Punishment for that horrible game. No, you're a good man. But let's talk about brains. The Friars apparently didn't bring their brains with them to Madison Square Garden. But brain preservation. In the first segment I told you, and I predicted this on this show in the past, that 2 late-stage drugs for treating Alzheimer's both failed. Folks, they're looking at this problem from the wrong end of the equation. You ever been fishing, Shannon? You've been fishing.
Oh, that one time.
Good memories, right? Mm-hmm. Squiggly worms.
Smells.
Gross,
slimy.
So think about that, man. We could go fishing. Nick, how about you? You're a fisherman? Okay. Yeah, so you know that if your fishing line tangles up, you cannot untangle it, right? You just cut it and you move on. This is the problem with Alzheimer's. They're trying to untangle the fishing line, folks. And when you have those snarls, those beta amyloid plaques, those tau tangles in your brain, that is the end stage of decades of trauma and exposure. Prevention, like that fishing line, right, Nick? You got to be careful when you cast it. You have to be mindful of not getting it tangled, because if it gets tangled, it's no good. You throw it away. So too with the brain. The time to start addressing this is today. And the way you do that is by detoxifying your body. Be mindful of your alcohol exposure. Now, when you drink, you need to neutralize free radicals with good antioxidants. We advocate low-dose lithium. We have a product at Intellectual Medicine called NeuroFit. It's a low-dose lithium. It's been shown to help protect neurons when exposed to alcohol. Glutathione. Can't be taken orally. It's got to be taken as an oral spray or intravenously. It can protect. Now, the bigger toxins are the ones that we're born with. We have that transmitted from mom to fetus, 120 toxins upon birth. The leading culprit is lead. Now, lead is ubiquitous. In fact, the Department of Health is charged with testing the water of public schools. And they recently found many public schools throughout the state whose water was in excess of the EPA action level of 15 parts per billion. Now, folks, the action level is arbitrary. The real level of lead that should be tolerated is 0. When you see these thresholds, they're not put in there to protect your brain against dementia. They're there to protect companies against lawsuits. As long as they're below the action level, whatever happens to you is not their fault. So if you're a school and your lead level is 14, you happy about that? Now, if the schools have those lead levels in their water, what about your house? Have you tested it? Now, there's a company out there. You can call them. They will ship you a kit, and you can test your tap water. It's called Doctor's Data, D-A-T-A, Doctor's the first word. If you forget all this, you can contact our office, right, Shan? They can do that.
They sure can.
And listen, on this radio show, we are independent. We take no sponsors. We get no revenue from anything we advocate. So when I tell you Doctor's Data can test your water, it's because I want it for your health. In addition, you should test your body. Lead damages brains, and it does so slowly. 11 schools in Cranston were elevated lead levels, 11. So if you're in Rhode Island, get your water tested, and if you're in the sound of my voice, you can come to our office and get your body tested for lead stores. What about those power plants? What about Invenergy that wants to plop a pollution-spewing, lead-spewing power plant in the middle of the most densely populated state in the Union? We must stop this, folks. We have to use, if anybody listening to this show, any tool or resource we can use. How about if we passed a tax? Could the state legislature do this? They're going to pass a tax for any energy plant in Burrillville. The tax will be $1 million a year. Go ahead and build your plant now. We need to stop it through any means necessary. Now, the idea that we need this plant for energy is ludicrous. If you do not build the plant, you will leave space in the economy for other energies to fill in. You continue to suffocate innovation by choking us on these fossil fuel burning power plants. You're going to continue to kill us. Look, it's like flushing the toilet right into the bay. You're pumping the pollutants right into the air. We can do better, folks. Let's export the oil to the Middle East and keep clean air here. We can do this. We've got the technology. And that lead correlates with dementia, and it's one of the reasons that these toxins are causing Rhode Island to have one of the highest per capita rates of cancer in the nation. In the meantime, you can detoxify yourself. We do offer chelation, the most powerful means of removing lead from the body. And we do more of it than anybody in Rhode Island, and it's critical that you be aware of it for your own health. So check out our website and you can learn more about it. Give me a call. We could talk about it. But I got to take another break. We're coming up on the bottom half of the hour. And next from the Seascape News Center, Doug Lizette with the news. Doug, what's happening out there?
Is that really his Obamacare, Trump's name for it?
What's that?
It's like world's greatest healthcare plan.
That's the one for his healthcare plan?
Yeah. Oh, I'm dying. Oh. What do you got next?
Some positive accolades for the Department of Health. Nicole Alexander Scott, they put forth the new regulations for emergency rooms regarding opioids. Everybody now has to leave with naltrexone and better support upon being discharged from the ER. It was prompted by a case where they had a person who went to the ER 3 times for drug overdose, eventually died. And they're saying, like, why aren't we doing more to connect these folks in treatment?
Why do they think they're actually going to take the naltrexone? I can't imagine they're going to take that.
Well, who knows? If they leave with it, there's a higher probability that a friend of theirs may be educated in how to use it. Drug addicts usually travel in packs. And the more of the naltrexone you have in circulation, maybe it saves a couple lives. It's cheap, it's easy to administer, there's no downside. But you're right, it's not a panacea. I'm not quite sure the remedy. Part of it is making it less available. Mm-hmm. They're trying hard to do that. I was talking to a patient of mine who suddenly went from being an A student to like flunking everything. Smoking marijuana, junior in high school, is at Johnston. Teachers there are saying like 90% of the kids are smoking weed.
Oh my gosh.
We've gotten so much misinformation about it being benign.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Kids read the paper, they listen to the radio, and they hear the debates. The brains are pretty plastic.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real dilemma, because the police state to stop drug addiction has not worked, and legalizing it I'm still in favor of, but we need strong controls, and we need strong education to protect developing brains.
Mm. I think that so many kids just see it now as it's legal, so it's okay.
Safe.
It's safe, yeah. Where did they get it from? I don't know.
Marijuana?
Yeah. I guess wherever kids always got it from, or drugs, or
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Mm.
So we have 2 more segments. And I need a tissue. Do you have any things you wanna highlight? I think we talked enough about the power plant.
I think we did. We talked about it a week.
You want to bring up the DEM thing?
Sure. Well, you can bring it up. I'll slightly talk about it.
Okay.
Servicing Rhode Island and southeastern Massachusetts for over 30 years. Call professional security at 942-4430. Open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Oh, long break.
Why is it vital to monitor your blood pressure? If you're over 35 and you don't take steps to maintain your blood pressure and look after your heart, you need to be aware of a harsh statistic. 1 in every 3 deaths in the U.S.
What is this commercial?
to heart-related issues. But don't lose heart, because a Nobel Prize-winning discovery revealed that
No.
nitric oxide is key to a healthier cardiovascular
Oh
system.
my gosh.
That's why we want to send you a risk-free supply of a groundbreaking supplement called
Groundbreaking.
Life, which helps support nitric oxide levels for heart health.
Wow.
We'll even include free test strips to prove it works. Get yours by texting the word TODAY to 321321. Berkeley Life helps support your energy, vitality, and may help maintain normal, healthy blood pressure levels. 100% drug-free. It helps support a healthy heart.
High-dose
Text the word
L-arginine
TODAY to 321321
helps the nitrous oxide.
for your risk-free supply, plus
Pretty
free
harmless.
test strips.
Yeah, that's what it is.
TODAY
Gotta
to
be.
321321.
Welcome to Staples.
Um,
Guy, I have my own business.
It's 2:30 to show in the house.
Now I'm wearing my office manager hat because
That's what she texted me.
Staples has everything you need. Now I'm putting on my CFO hat because I can't overspend. Well, right now HP OfficeJet Pro 6968 printers are only $99.99. All my hats and I would like to
We've got
They are welcome. Staples. Everything you need for
patient
business
930
at
today,
great
correct?
prices. And now get an HP OfficeJet Pro 6968 printer for only $99.99. Valid on SKU 2256781 and 31117.
1 minute to go. Almost kickoff. Oh, we want to mention too, getting the kids out of the house. The place down in Wakefield. Airsoft.
Oh, after Surf Extreme. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Offers competitive lease rates. Located in rural North Kingstown. Contact Drybridge Commerce Park today. DrybridgeCommercePark.com.
You know, it's one of those things you never think that you'd buy online, blinds. But that was before I found Blinds.com. The price, selection, and quality are amazing. And their professional designers will give you a free online design consultation.
Bike guy.
Pick, measure, and install the perfect blinds.
Bike helmets just look dorky. Just can't get around it.
Blinds for free. They'll send you free samples, and every order gets free
Got to be a better way to protect your head,
Get up to 30% off site-wide at Blinds.com
right?
with
It's,
promo code PAGS.
Okay.
Code PEGS. Rules and restrictions apply.
News Talk 630 and 99.7 FM WPRO presents Intellectual Medicine with Dr. Petteruti. Join Dr. Petteruti as he guides people towards living a 120 lifespan. He'll apply logic, reason, and scientific evidence to address conditions that drain people of their joy and vitality, protecting people from the harmful aspects of conventional medicine. Now, here's Dr. Steve Petteruti.
We're back, folks, guiding you towards a 120-year lifespan. Today, we were focusing a bit on brain preservation, the connection between your brain health, your hormonal replacement, and the avoidance of toxins such as lead. Shan, I got to mention, too, though, there was a study correlating accelerated brain atrophy with adiposity. people with excess fat cells had brains that were on average 10 years older. And there was another study that showed fewer people than ever are trying to lose weight. You think about that. They are getting discouraged. And they're wondering, the theories, well, why? It's because after 30 years of diet and exercise failure, people throw their hands up. Say, this is just me. I got to learn to adapt to it. Sacrificing your brain and your health is no reason to abandon the hope that weight control can happen. At Intellectual Medicine, we have discovered the cure. I can say that boldly because we've been doing this now for 20 years. The problem is that conventional medicine has adopted an attitude of willful ignorance when it comes to the complexity of permanently treating weight loss. They have forced it back into the lap of the victims, the sufferers of the metabolic challenges. You're just weak and lazy, and that's why you're heavy. Well, physical activity is a beautiful thing, but it's not enough. This is the hardest thing to do in medicine. You got to bring them all together. Now, a lot of criticism go into video games, kids sitting around doing video games. We found a place that is a wonderful outlet for your children. If you have a pen, you want to grab it because we're going to give you this tip. It's a live-action video game you can plug the kids into. Where's that place that Ethan went to? It's
Airsoft Extreme, down in Peacedale or Wakefield.
Okay.
And they do Nerf, it's Nerf, and Airsoft. So you have kids, 8 to 12 who don't want to do Airsoft. The Nerf parties on Wednesdays from 4 to 8 are wonderful. And then, they can get 4 hours of just running around. I mean, they can go all day if they wanted to.
Now, when you were a kid, did you ever play Army or guns or any of that stuff?
No.
Wasn't? How about, Nick, was that a thing when you were a kid? Yeah. Remember, getting the little plastic guns and running around and making posses? Wasn't that fun? Of course, I'm an Army veteran, and I advocate strong defense.
I can't
However,
see kids running around with guns outside anymore.
You make a good point, Shan. It's not as innocent a world. And kids, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different world. But it's safe because this is an indoor venue. So we advocate this. Get your kids active. It's one of the nice gems in the state of Rhode Island, a beautiful resource to get them running around. So, but folks, it's not enough to help people lose weight. That's the point that I was making, that this has to be connected to a deeper source, because that adiposity, not only does it increase dementia risk, but it also elevates cancer risk. Too often when we see people at our center for secondary or primary prevention of cancer, they're oncologists, well-intentioned, well-educated, and certainly thoroughly versed in chemotherapeutic modalities, overlook nutritional, environmental, and body weight issues and how they can contribute to relapsing of cancer. At the Intellectual Medicine Center, we use that approach in order to help make people more resilient. So you start preventing cancer now when you're healthy. You preserve your brain now when you're healthy. The 120-year lifespan is a real thing. It can be achieved. The question to ask isn't, why did someone die at 85? It's why didn't they make it to 120? And that's what we're going for. And our goal is to keep you well enough so when new advances come through, and they're going to, that will push that envelope to 150 years, you'll be there to be the recipient of it. That is, if we have any money left to spend. And somebody said once, the key to happiness is to make sure that you die before you run out of money. He said, I should be okay as long as I die by next Thursday. But let's look at that DEM building, because, Shan, you had some thoughts on that. They put in a $7 million, they're intending to, Natural Resource and Visitor Center on the, believe it's the Exeter West Greenwich line in Arcadia Management Area.
Yeah, my issue isn't that they're doing it. I mean, honestly, I don't know that much about it. It's that they kind of did it on the lowdown. They didn't tell anyone about it, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, by the way, look what we're doing.
That's a great point. And I think you can argue the merits or lack thereof of this center, but the manner in which it occurred speaks to what we were speaking about last week, which is bureaucratic oligarchy, the dictatorship of the bureaucracy. They don't have to be thoughtful, sensitive, or considerate of individuals. They can force a building down your throat without even talking to you about it. Now, it seems to me that the center may be a good idea. I like the notion of having a place where I can go to, park my car, and it gives me access to this area. I don't even know where Arcadia is. Have you been there?
No.
How about you, Nick? You ever go down there? See if
No. See, none of us. Why would they build a $7 million building to an area where maybe not that many people go?
well, so that we'll go there.
I don't know.
It becomes a magnet, right, Nick? I mean, if there's a parking lot and a bathroom, I got a greater probability of making it there than if there's not. Otherwise, it's just another stream of trees. Look, if you live next door to it, they don't want that building because they don't want you to go there with all your buddies, right? All these grody city folk all come mucking up the pristine countryside. You know why? They don't like people. That's why they live there. They don't want more people coming. So no, I think that, information, this power goes to their head. So the Department of Health, we've been talking about the HPV immunization, the notion that we can be forced against our will to take drugs and shots put into our body because the state thinks it's good for you. It's exactly the condition that we live in this moment. Now, I have no doubt that the leaders at the Department of Health are well-intentioned. And I also have no doubt that they are paternalistic, that they don't trust you to make good decisions about your body and your children, and therefore they're taking that freedom away from you. Now, there are a couple of bills you need to know about that are intended to weaken the Department of Health's unilateral power to impose drugs upon the population. In this case, we're talking about the HPV immunization. This, folks, is an immunization against an entity that has never afflicted any child in elementary or secondary school, that cannot be transmitted through the air, that no child has ever missed a day of school from. It's based upon the hope and the theory that by immunizing all of these children against their will, against their parents' wishes in some cases, they will prevent future cases of cervical cancer. Now, that is a noble goal. Nobody likes cancer. We want to seek to prevent it. But the idea that a new technology, not fully proven, and above and beyond all that, even if it were perfect, that they can force it on you without any input is just wrong. Now, Senators Raptakis and Senator Morgan have advanced a bill that would require hearings and would prevent the Department of Health from being able to impose immunizations on diseases that are not spread in the classroom. We support this bill at Intellectual Medicine. Representative Price has some legislation as well. What you can do is contact your representative because it may not affect you today, but it can tomorrow. Suppose there were an immunization out there against HIV. Would we be forced to take it? Hey, I root for that immunization to come. I encourage people to educate themselves and make their own decision. I trust you to make those decisions. That's what intellectual medicine is about. Freedom, information, education, and open discussion. To force it is just wrong. And we want these bills to pass, and we want to roll back that mandate. Good intentions does not mean good policy. Now, on the flip side, we'll give kudos to the Department of Health, Shan, because they are trying really hard to stem the tide of addiction and death. And they recently put in some ER mandates that I think are going to become perhaps a standard for the nation. Somebody appearing in an emergency room with a drug overdose now has to leave with a prescription for naltrexone, as well as better connection to support upon discharge. We certainly favor this. But, we should talk about the whole marijuana issue on one of these shows, Shan.
We should.
Let's make that an agenda item. In fact, let's tee it up. We'll do that next week. It's too much to fit into today's show, folks, but it needs to be discussed. We're talking about legalizing it. We need to discuss it on the show and in other forums. What impact will it have? What are the pros and cons? So let's do that next. We'll try to get somebody who's involved with the medical marijuana community to be a member of that as well. And we'll get that on board and discuss it because it's important to our public health.
It's important to the teens we were just talking about.
Right. It's the perception of marijuana being benign is something we need to seriously question. I was talking to one educator, a teacher, who told me that at this particular high school, 90% of the kids, by her estimate, were using marijuana on a regular or part-time basis. That's an extraordinary number.
Scary.
Well, you know what? It does accumulate in the brain, and a developing brain is a different entity than a fully mature brain. And so I'll tell you a quick story. My son, I've told this before, but I'll say it on air. At the time he was in high school, he's working for a construction company, and at lunch break, all the workers would go behind the dumpster and smoke weed. And he would just stay inside and sweep. And he came home from work one day and he goes, Dad, now I know two things. He goes, number one, now I know why all the houses are crooked. And he said, if this is my competition in life, I think I'm going to do okay. Right? The chronic weed smokers are not the engines of industry by and large. Anyhow, we're going to talk about keeping you alive to 120. I'm Dr. Petteruti with Shannon. This is Intellectual Medicine on WPRO, the voice of Southern New England. We have a UHIP we can talk about. We sent out 1,100. They sent personal information out. The personal information out of 1,100 people accidentally. The computer did.
Yikes. So I'm officially declaring March to be a much horrible month than February.
It always
in Rhode
is.
Island.
March just lies to you. It pretends it's something nice, this out like a lamb crap. It's dismal because it's just February, only you're more tired of it.
I know.
Officially declaring March what again?
Got him. Rewind.
Okay, we're officially declaring March the worst month on the calendar.
There you go.
I can't think of a worse month. So it's good news. The Affordable Care Act is finally dying. What an ill-named entity. It is absolutely non-sustainable.
No. Affordable for who? Not for us.
Not for anybody. The inflationary rate of it, you create a new entitlement program, it explodes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we should talk a little bit more about that college scholarship thing, about new welfare. No?
I think you're good.
Okay.
We talk about it every week.
I hate it so much.
I know you do.
Straightforward, common sense financial and investment advice to people just like you. Let us help you achieve your goals. We have 3 offices in the Boston area, and an Edelman financial planner is ready to help you. Call 888-PLAN-RIC. That's 888-PLAN-RIC. Or visit us at
So when will the teams be finalized for football?
Oh, they'll have the free agency period, then they'll have the draft, then you'll have training camps where players will get cut. And as they get cut, they get picked up by other teams. The final roster doesn't have to be pared down until, I think, a week before the first game, which is like late August. And even after that, over the course of the season, there can be trades during the season. You can cut players during the season. You can sign free agents during the season. It's just harder to do it because everybody's now on a team, all the good athletes. But occasionally a player will get, like we picked up a receiver in the middle of the year last year. So there's always movement, injuries and such. This is the free agency period where all the guys that have earned free agents privileges can go out and sign big contracts. And then I don't know when the draft is. It's kind of cool because it becomes like a year-round sport. If you're a fan, you get to watch what's happening to your team, to the other teams. Gives people stuff to talk about. Same thing in baseball. There's they call it the hot stove league. After the season ends, there's a quiet time, and then shortly thereafter they have the winter meetings where they start talking about trading and swapping and where they're going to get players. The draft is less of a thing in baseball because you draft a player, it may take him 3 to 5 years to become ready for the major leagues. Okay. Okay. We are back, folks, and I like small businesses. Shan, do you?
I do.
We are a small business, aren't we?
We are.
Intellectual medicine. Intellectual medicine originated here in Rhode Island, where we planted our flag. I'm a board-certified family physician, board-certified in anti-aging medicine, certified in chelation therapy. Shannon is a certified licensed nurse practitioner with advanced training in anti-aging medicine and women's health. Together, we have created the intellectual medicine movement. It's a place where you can get your primary care, the type that is guiding you towards 120 years. We believe in this so much that we have made it our mission to extend it first regionally, then throughout the country. We are opening up our doors to welcome other clinicians, doctors and nurse practitioners to join us in the intellectual medicine movement. Waiting around for health care from Washington is not going to happen. The debates that are occurring now, we're going to go on for the next 30 years. There will be a modicum of catastrophic care that will come out of your insurance plan. You don't look to your car insurance to keep your car in good shape. You don't look to your health insurance to keep you living to be 120. Now, here's the dirty secret that we know, that the insurance companies know, that you don't know. Preventative care costs money. This idea that through prevention you can save dollars in healthcare is nonsense. It's cheaper to let everybody just kind of toddle forward and then throw Band-Aids at the folks who get sick because there are fewer of them. It's a random event. And in some ways, it's almost unethical to have a debate where you correlate the value of prevention against how much money it can save. Now, if a great preventative intervention can actually add quality and length to life, would you eliminate its consideration because it doesn't save money? I wouldn't. There's a line item in your budget, folks, and it needs to be for life extension. And this is it's a bit of a wild west. At Intellectual Medicine, we're trying to filter this for our patients. You go online, which we encourage you to do, and there's as much misinformation as quality information, and it can be hard to wade through it. We go through that every day, separating what supplements make sense, what hormones should I use and how much, when should I start them, how do I know that chelation is the right thing to do and how much and when. What about my arterial health? If you are looking at your blood pressure and your cholesterol as a means of evaluating your arterial health, you're practicing 1990s medicine. We look at the artery directly, using things like calcium score and pulse wave velocity to judge the age of your arteries and help preserve them. This, folks, is intellectual medicine. This is the future of medicine happening right here, right now in Rhode Island and soon other places throughout our state and nation. We are committed to this. We have seen the fruits of our labor. The people in our practice, Shannon, they're just what? Healthier, smarter, better looking.
Better looking.
Well,
educated.
Well, that's right. Our typical patient is somebody like you, a listener who thinks about their health, thinks about life, intellectually processes information. It's a grand movement forward. Now, speaking of brains, or the lack thereof, another chapter of the UHIP crisis unfolded over the past week when they accidentally mailed out personal information on over 1,100 people.
How is that? How?
I don't know. They must push the wrong button on the computer. This $365 million criminal entity that was imposed on us from Deloitte, think about that money for a moment, Shannon. I did some quick math. That's over $1,000 for every tax-paying Rhode Islander to support this computer that has deprived people of their benefits, that has misdirected funds, misdirected information. I'm calling again upon a full 100% refund from Deloitte. In fact, they should pay us for being the experimental laboratory where they get to make all their mistakes.
Yeah.
I don't blame our politicians, right? I go to Best Buy and I buy a computer. I can't blame myself if they sell me a junk of crap that doesn't work. I'm not the dude that knows what's behind the screen. Our politicians I'm going to judge them based on how they react to this. I want the Attorney General to put the heat on Deloitte, right? They have power. They can charge them with criminal entities. What is fraud, right? Malfeasance. I don't know exactly what that word means, but it sounds pretty cool. They can do things to put heat on them. Look, $360 million is chump change to a huge company. We are being tooled, and I want them to do something about it. If you're not going to put forth criminal threat, then let's get a civil suit against Deloitte. I want all that money back, every penny, not a 10% withhold. People have been damaged. Our state has been harmed, and this money could be better used elsewhere. It drives me nuts. Anyhow, that's what I think we should be doing. And I think that this is is it a small business Saturday or something coming up?
No.
No, it's...
No, that's like in the fall.
Oh, okay. All right, I misdirected it. So we're talking today, our highlights, we're talking about brains, hormone replacement, really in, keeping our state clean and devoid of pollutants. And if you can't do that adequately, or even when that happens, we've got to take care of our internal environment. Think about it, 120 years, why not you? Why not now? Why are you suffering in the face of undiagnosed entities when your doctors shrug their shoulders and say, I got nothing for you? Think, act, educate, intellectual medicine. I'm Dr. Petteruti with Shannon. Nick behind the glass. Thanks for listening, folks. We'll see you here next week.